Hello everyone, welcome to week 16, and we are going to continue our introduction to JavaScript lessons. So right here I have a pre-written code that I've prepared for this exercise. So we're still looking at the basic topics that will help us build a better understanding of JavaScript. So these are still the introduction to JavaScript topics that we'll be treating for this exercise. Now, today we're going to look at objects and scope. We're going to look at string searching and string methods, and we're going to look at events and DOM. So for this exercise, we will be demonstrating how to make use of these JavaScript lessons that we've learned in the class lesson. So if you have seen the class lesson video, you would have a better understanding of the exercise we're going to be having today. So I'm also going to explain further on the topics, but we'll be using exercises to illustrate it so you have better understanding about the JavaScript topics. All right, so here I have created a style that I would build this page on. So this is just going to be for my sections. I'm going to have several sections, and I have already set the text, the font family, the font for the page, and all my text will be in the middle. And I'm going to have a margin around them of 20px. And also my sections are going to have a space at the bottom of 30px, and I'm going to have headings in each sections, and the section headings will have a color, a green color, and as well as the outputs of my JavaScript that I will be running. All right, so let's begin. So first we're going to look at understanding scope in JavaScript. Now, scope in JavaScript refers to the accessibility of variables depending on where and how the variable is declared. Now, it can be accessible in different parts of the code. There are three main types, but we're going to focus on two. Sorry. All right, so we're going to look at the different types of scope, and the first scope is the global scope. So I'm going to create a content tier so we can have a better understanding of how this is done. So I'm going to have a div. And just as I have created sections for the div, the section classes, I am going to have a class here called section. Now in this section is where we're going to have example. So I'll be using the h2, and I'm going to call this objects. And scope. All right, please give me a minute. Okay, so we're going to have a heading for this illustration. Now, I'm going to create a paragraph here. And this should explain what we'll be doing. So what we want to do here is we're going to have a button that is going to display the scope. So I'm going to create a paragraph here to illustrate this. So the paragraph will say, click the button to see the scope example. Now let's have the button element. So I want to add a JavaScript attributes on click. Then we're going to have a function. So once we have created this function, we can include it on the onClick attribute. So the button should be show scope example. So we're going to have one final div, and this div is going to be for elements that will be using to display the output. So I'm going to have an ID here, and I want it to be scope out. I already have a class output. So I'm going to include the class output that I've included the style in my style area. I'm going to save this and let's see how this displays. Okay, so for now we just have the paragraph which we've created and the button. So the div is not visible because we don't have any content inside, but it's meant to display the outputs of the JavaScript that we're going to apply to this button. So for now, if we click a button, it doesn't display anything. So I'm going to start with the script. So I'll be writing the script inside the body of the HTML page. So I'm going to use a comment so we'll be able to tell what we're doing here. So we're going to look at objects and scope. Now let's create a variable that we're going to show. I'm going to use to show you how the global variable and the global scope, the local scope, and the block scope, how it works. So let's say let global variable equal to so I'm just going to put it a string here that will say I am a global variable. So you recall from our last lesson how we learned how to assign variables, values to variables, or we assigned variables to values likewise. So now this is going to be our global scope, because a global scope is defined outside the function or a block of code. So any variable that is defined outside a block of code or a function is known as a global scope. It's known to have a global scope and also a global variable. So I want to create a function that we're going to look at how this how it is when we try to access a variable that is in the global and also in a block scope. So to write a function, we use the function keyword and the function name. So the function name would be show scope. Okay, show scope example. And we're not going to pass an argument here. So now inside the function, I'm going to assign a variable here, and we're going to look at if it's possible to access it. So I will say now this will be our local variable. So let's local variable let local variable equal to I'm just going to write the text, and it's going to say I am a local variable. So let's make this more interesting. We're going to add more variables. Let's add a variable for our output. So let's output equals to global variable So this output is going to display the different variables we have defined here. So global variable will be equal to, so I'm going to try and create a formatted string here, and I'll say global variable with space plus the global var, that variable that we've created outside, plus. Now I would prefer if this goes to a new line, so I'm going to add the break tag here. And this will be for the local variable. So I'll say local variable space plus so this will be for the local variable. Now we're going to see how this displays on the screen. So say documents that gets elements by ID, and our ID will be scope out, since that's where we want it to display. So we'll have it here as scope output, sorry. I'm going to complete this scope output. Dot inner HTML. So now we want to print out output. I'm going to put this in the function and we'll see how it works first. So I want to explain something. Now there is a difference between when we use the let keyword and when we use the var keyword. That's the assignment operators, the assignment keywords we use. Sorry, we learned last week that we can use the let, var, and const keyword to create variables and assign values to variables. So here I want to illustrate the difference between the let keyword and the. Normally, when we create a variable in the outside a function or outside a block of code or a block scope, like we have here, the curly brace is the beginning of this block, and every variable created inside this curly brace has a block scope. or can also be referred to as a local variable. And every variable outside the function or outside this curly brace is known as a global variable and has a global scope. So now we want to look at this with the let keyword. So I'm going to take this out first. Now we've already assigned that the global variable is accessible. We assign the global variable to this string, and the global variable, once it's assigned outside a block of code, it's accessible anywhere on the script. But once it's assigned inside the block of code, it can only be accessible if you did not use the var keyword. Let's say you use the let or you use the const. It can only be accessible inside the function or when you call the function itself, but you cannot access it outside the block of code. That's why it's called a local variable or a block scope. So now we have assigned a variable called global variable outside this function, and because it's a global variable, we can be able to access it and call it inside the function. So you see, we assigned a local variable which cannot be called outside this function. So we're going to look at it too as well. So I'm going to save this and refresh my page. Okay, I have to illustrate this with the const keyword first, so you see it. I'm going to use console.log to display this out first before I put it in the button. So now let's look at how this works. If I say console.log and I want to print out this to the console, I'm going to go to my console and it's going to be printed out because it's a global variable. So I can easily access it anywhere on the script. Now let's see if we can access the local variable that we have inside the block of code. So if I save this and I refresh my page, and you see it's not possible for us to access it because it's a local variable and has a block scope. So we can't access it because it's inside the function or it's inside the block of code. So this is the difference. But if we use the var keyword, so we say var local variable, and I want to try to access this to print this out to my console, I'm going to refresh my page. Okay. Local variable is the index. This is defined. Okay, so I think this isn't working. This isn't working the way I want to. So I'm going to look at it and see why it's not working. All right, but now we have an idea what the global scope and the block scope is about. So when you assign a variable outside the block of code, it's easily accessible on any part of the script, but once it's inside the function or a block of code, you won't be able to access it. So we're just going to make sure that this displays on the button before we move to the next topic. So now I need to add my onClick function from the JavaScript. So we've created a variable or a function that we're going to add to our onClick JavaScript attributes there in the button. So what we have here is that we want to reveal this script once we're able to click this button. So I'm going to save this and let's see if this is going to display. Okay, still not working. Okay, so I'm going to let me use file for this. Let global variable, close global variable, local variable. Let output equal to global variable. Let's global variable. Justification. And for the button, okay, so I'm trying to debug to see why my script isn't running. Okay, so I have to specify that this is a function by including the empty arguments which we have here as well. So hopefully this is going to work. Okay, so it's still not working. Okay, let me debug this to see why this isn't working. Okay. Output is not defined. Index 42. Okay, so let's see if I change this to var. Let's see if this is going to work. Alright, so I guess I'll be using the var keyword for the rest of the exercise. Still not displaying button on click. right, so the problem has been from the output. So I used my console.log to debug this and found out that the problem was from my output. All right, so you can as well see how to debug an error from your scripts whenever you are having problem with display. All right, so now what has been done here is that we have a button, and I was trying to show you the difference between the global scope and the block scope. So variables that are assigned inside the function or a block of code, it's called a block that has a block scope and cannot be accessed outside the function. So here I just created the button and added an event that when clicked with this function, the function here is that we have a variable that is a local variable. We also have a global variable which is outside the function, and inside this same function we have a variable called output that would display the text, the string global variable, which is colon, and it's going to add the variable that we created. And what we have inside the global variable is I am a global variable. So this is just what we have here. I am a global variable, and also we use the break tag inside the string that is for the local variable, and we just added the local variable variable keyword we used that we created earlier inside this same block of code that we want to use to illustrate to the local variable. So we just added it and close the line, and then print to the screen using the ID for the empty container we created here to display the output of this. That's the variable output that we've created here. So it's just basically text, but it's just to show us that we have the global variable outside and the local variable inside the block of code. So let's move on to another example because of time. Now, next we're going to look at objects now. But first, let's also try to add more events. So we used one of the type of events attributes here for onClick. So let's see if we can have another example for events. So HTML events are actions that happen in the browser, just like we have here on click. So like clicking a button, loading a page, or hovering over an element. So JavaScript can react to these events, and we use different attributes for this. We have different ways we can create events or any particular function to happen once something is done. So for the onClick is when an element is clicked. That's when we use the onClick attributes. And we also have on mouse over, when the mouse hovers over an element. We have on load when the page or an image is fully loaded. So let's look at another example of an event. To return my section here to make sure the page is uniform. Let's have another heading. And this will be for HTML events and done. So we want to create a hover effect here. So I want to say hover over me, over the text. Okay. Below to change its color. Okay, so let's have another p tag for, and this is going to have an ID, and we're going to name this over text. Now we're going to add the events attributes to this element, so we can see it's not just only on buttons. So we're going to use the on mouse over. Sorry. So on mouse over. And we're going to create a function that will be changing the color. So I'll call this change color. And we can also have another event. This should be on mouse out. And this is just going to reset the color. So I'll name this function reset color. So always remember to include the empty brackets to signify that it's a function. So for this, I'm just going to have a text that will say over me. Save this. Now let's write the script for this text. So we're going to have a function here. First, I'm just going to name what we're doing here, which is for HTML events, and right, so we're going to create a function, and this function will be to change the color. Now we want to make sure that the color display for the text, once we hover around it, it changes. So what we do here is we're going to add a documents.getElement by the ID. The ID we have here is hover text. Well, instead of inner.html, we want to apply a style. So we say .style .color, and the color we want to apply here should be red. So we're going to close this, and we're going to have another function. this function name is for the reset color. And all we want to do here is also get the get document.getElement by ID. The same ID for the same text. Dot style dot color, and this color, let's use green. Have the reset color function. We have the change color function. So I'm going to say this and refresh the page. So see how this displays. Now, because we've assigned the function to the elements, the P elements, using the ID over text and the attributes, which includes the functions, we are able to have the events, and we have to have the event to make the event possible, whereby when we hover over the text, so I'm going to put this out here. So the text says hover over me, and in the opening tag of the P elements, we have the ID, which we use to get the elements, and the mouse over attributes for the JavaScript function to apply to, and the mouse out attribute as well for our reset color function. So the change color function is just to get the element by ID, which is for this P element, and we will just want the color, the style, that's the color to change to red when we hover, mouse over, and when we mouse out, it changes to green. So if I mouse over, it changes to red, and I mouse out, it changes to green. If I refresh the page, everything goes back to the same. I mouse over, mouse out, it goes to green. So this is just another way of applying, using events attributes, JavaScript event attributes. So let's now look at objects. So we're going to have another div here for that illustration section. Okay, because of time, let's just look at strings. And string method. So this is going to be a little bit complex. That's why I'm just going to do this while we still have a little time. We're going to have a paragraph, and this paragraph now would explain what we're about to do here. So let's say enter the string. So we're going to have an input where we enter a string, and we're going to create a function that is going to provide the different type of string methods. So we're going to do an all-in-one type of function. So enter a string. So let's use manipulation. So enter a string to manipulate. Alright, so for this, to be able to have inputs, we use the input elements that we use for forms, and this can also give you an insight of how we can start storing values from forms as well. So for the inputs, the type is text, and we're going to use an ID and a placeholder in this input that will tell the user what to do. So first, the ID would be string inputs. Placeholder, and the placeholder is just going to say type something. Okay, so I think this should be enough. So I'm just going to, since I'm not performing the form validation, I'm going to take this one out. When we want to look at form validations, then we're going to make use of the name. All right, so now we have the inputs, and next we want to have the button. So let's have a button. And we're going to use the onClick attributes. So there are several attributes, there are several ways we can do this, but I'm making use of the onClick attributes. So when it's going to happen. So on click, we're going to have a function that we'll use to perform this manipulation. So I'm going to name the function that I'm creating as manipulate string. And the button name now would be manipulate string. So I want the display of the manipulation to be below the button. So I'm just going to put an empty div. Okay, so I'm just going to put an empty div below, and I'm going to add the ID, which is string input. Oh no, this is going to be the string output function. All right. And we just include our outputs class for our style. So we're going to have a uniform style. Save this. Now let's go and create our script for this illustration. So this now would be for strings and methods. So first we are creating the function, and the first function is the manipulate string, which we have on click. and what do we want to do when the button is clicked, we are going to say so string manipulations, like we have learned in the class lesson. We saw that we can change the different we can manipulate strings, that's the text. We can make it have uppercase, lowercases, or replace a particular letter in the string. So here we're trying to create a type of inputs whereby any name or any value that is entered inside the inputs, we can perform the different string methods that we've learned in the class lesson. So this function is going to hold the different string methods that we have looked at in the class lesson so far. So I'm going to say let's string. So this is a variable. So let's string into equal to documents dot get elements by ID. And the ID we have here is string inputs. Okay. Now this is for our string, and we're going to be making use of this string variable to apply our methods. So this isn't done. So for us to be able to get the value of what is entered in the inputs, so instead of us to just get element by ID, we are going to say get element by ID with the ID string inputs dot value. So this value will be any inputs, whatever the user would type inside the input elements, that's the container that will display on the screen. So I'm going to save this first so we see what we're talking about. So we have the strings and string methods, and it says enter a string to manipulate. So we expect that when we type something inside this container, this input field, we can, when we click the button manipulate string, it's going to manipulate the string using the different methods that we're going to create here. So we have given the functions inside the button elements and now we want to write what the function, what will happen. So first we define what the string would be. The variable for the string is going to be the value of any string that is entered inside the input field. So next, let's define another variable for the method. So now we want to get the text to be in uppercase. So I'm just going to say let upper equal to, now the string we have created, that's str dot, so we use the method for uppercases, which is to upper. So string dot to uppercase. So this is just because we don't have a value yet. So, but what is going to happen here is that it's going to make sure that the string variable which we have here would, well, whatever value that is entered would display in in an uppercase method. Right. So next, let's assign another method and we have method for lower. So we can say the string as well, and the method name for to apply lower cases to a string is to lower case. Now we're just going to look at the last one here, which is to replace. So let's say let's replace so replaced will be str dot, so the method name is replace, and in the parentheses we are going to specify what we want to replace. So here I want to specify a letter that will be replaced once we the user has any particular in the input. If it has any letter that is going to be any of the letter will specify here. So let me use E. So I want to replace E with at. So we can add more methods. We have the char ads method as well. So we're just going to look at this because we've passed time. So let's see how this works before we add anything else. So now these are the methods. Now let's add the final output variable. So let's output. So this is a formatted string that we'll be having here. So we want to make sure that everything displays inside this output, and we print out this output to the screen. So we're going to say the original plus. So the original is the string which the user will enter, plus we want to have the one for lowercase, since we have uppercase first. So we're going to say plus, but we want to break we want this to display on the new line. So we break the line and say upper, since we're going for upper first. So uppercase. Plus, so this is the uppercase now will be the variable we created for uppercase. Now we want to have for lower. So I'm just going to copy this. But this will be for lower cases. Plus, well, the variable we've created for lower. So the last one, which is replace. So this will be for replace. And what are we replacing? We're replacing E. Yeah, we're replacing E. So I have to put this in a single quotes, since I have used the double quotes for the main string. So replace E with at. And we're going to use the variable which we created, which is replaced. And now we want to print this once the button is clicked. We want this to be displayed on the screen. So we use document.getElement by ID, and the ID we created was string input. Dot inner HTML. And we want to print out output. Just going to save this and refresh our page. So see if this works. So I'm going to type in my name, and I'll start with the letter A, which is Ed1. So hopefully, okay, so this isn't working. Let's debug and see why it's not working. Oh, okay. Alright, so I'm going to look at the code to see myself what could be wrong. Thanks, times something. Okay, so I missed the ID. So the display for my elements to be able to display out should be string output. So let's see if this works. finally. So we have it manipulated. Now you can see that the different string method we created for storing them in the variables that are string, upper, lower, replaced, and output itself are all the JavaScript functions that we created to be able to have this work out well. So now if I refresh again, but before I do that, so you can see the original, which is the string, because I have used a formatted string to say output. When we print out the output, that's by clicking the button. It says original plus the string, which is the value we enter. So whatever value we enter here would always be manipulated. So plus we use the break tag to use the method we created in the upper variable. So we say let upper equal to uppercase. So this is the method for uppercase. So we say string, which is this string variable we created here, which is the value of anything that's the value that is entered, any text that is entered. So we say this string dot to uppercase. So we're just saying that whatever is entered should be in uppercase. That's why we have uppercase Edmond. So you can see the uppercase here in the formatted string that is displayed before the Edmond. So I put this here so you'll be able to see what is it that is on this line. That's why we call it formatted string. So I just adjusted it and say I want it plus the uppercase function. That's the variable we set here. Then for lower, we do the same break tag lowercase plus the lowercase the lower variable we created here. And what we say should happen to lower is that we want the string to have the method to lowercase. So we use the method to lowercase along with the string that is entered. That's why we have lowercase as Edmond. So every letter is lowercase, and for the text for uppercase, every text is uppercase. And for replace, we said we want any letter E to be replaced with at inside the value or anything that is entered. So if I add another text here, you're going to see just like this now that the E replaced E with at. So I could adjust the formatted text to display however I want, but I just want us to see that we replaced E with at. That's why we have, when we added the variable replaced, we have at Edmond. So if I say eBay and I select manipulate, it gives me at pay, as long as the E, so however the E could be, or let's try obey and see if this works. So it still takes out the E from the text and makes sure it's replaced with the at symbol we have included there. So this is how to one way to use string manipulations. So because of time, we are not able to look at the other topics, but you can always reach out to me when you have any challenges, and most of the topics has been touched already on the live class lessons. So maybe with time, we'll also look at, next week we'll look at how to search strings. We'll create an exercise like this for searching strings or number methods and properties. All right, so this is where we end the class today. If there's any question, you can feel free to ask now with a little time left. All right, so since there are no questions, I wish you all success in your assignments, and don't forget to reach out if you have any challenges. All right, bye everyone.
Bye.